Picture this, a volcanic rock rising from the endless Atlantic, where the most feared man in European history takes his final breaths. It's 1821, and Napoleon Bonaparte, the conqueror who once held Europe in his palm, now shuffles through the gardens of his prison like a broken ghost, his once commanding presence reduced to that of a sick, aging prisoner on the world's most isolated island. But here's what chills the blood. The circumstances of his death remain one of history's most sinister mysteries. Was it murder, disease, or something far more calculated and cruel?
To understand this tragic ending, we must journey back to 1815, when everything changed forever. After his crushing defeat at Waterloo, Napoleon faced his second abdication, but this time, there would be no mercy, no second chances. The European powers had learned their lesson. This eagle could never be allowed to soar again. Their chosen cage? St. Helena, a volcanic prison rising from the South Atlantic like something from a nightmare. Over 1,200 miles from the nearest landmass, surrounded by treacherous waters and towering cliffs that laughed at any escape attempt. This wasn't exile. This was living death.
October 15th, 1815. The HMS Northumberland cuts through gray Atlantic swells, carrying the most dangerous prisoner in the world to his final destination. When Napoleon first glimpses St. Helena through the ship's porthole, what he sees must have stopped his heart cold. A jagged piece of volcanic rock clawing at the sky, devoid of welcoming beaches or friendly harbors. Just hostile cliffs and scrublands struggling against relentless winds. This barren wasteland would be his kingdom now, all 47 square miles of it. His new palace, Longwood House, a decaying mansion perched on the island's most desolate plateau. The roof leaked like a sieve. Walls crawled with mold from the constant dampness, and howling winds turned every night into a symphony of misery. The man who once slept in palaces across Europe now called this rotting structure home.
Waiting for him like a spider in its web was Sir Hudson Lowe, the British governor whose mission was simple yet diabolical. Keep Napoleon alive, but make every day a living hell. Lowe had studied his prisoner's psychology and knew exactly how to break him. The psychological warfare began immediately. Napoleon would be called General Bonaparte, never Your Majesty, a calculated insult that cut deeper than any blade. Every letter censored, every walk supervised, every visitor scrutinized. The emperor who once decided the fate of millions now had to beg permission to plant vegetables in his garden. But Lowe's cruelest weapon wasn't chains or bars, it was humiliation. Day after day, year after year, stripping away Napoleon's dignity piece by piece until the lion became a caged mouse.
Then, in 1817, something sinister began. Napoleon started complaining of agonizing stomach pains, violent nausea, and crushing fatigue that left him bedridden for days. At first, everyone blamed the tropical climate or poor island diet, but these weren't ordinary symptoms. They were systematic, progressive, and getting worse. The emperor's legendary energy vanished like smoke. His face turned gaunt and pale. His famous piercing eyes dulled to lifeless glass. The body that once marched across battlefields commanding 500,000 men now struggled to walk to his garden without collapse. Dr. Francesco Antomarchi, the Corsican physician sent by Napoleon's family, arrived in 1819 to find his patient already dying. His diagnosis was grim: severe liver dysfunction, possibly caused by the toxic combination of climate, stress, and malnutrition. But was that really the whole truth?
Here's where the story turns dark as midnight. Many of Napoleon's followers, including Count Las Casas, whispered of something more sinister: slow, deliberate poisoning by the British. Not enough to kill quickly and create a martyr, but just enough to ensure a lingering, agonizing death. In the 20th century, this theory gained terrifying credibility when scientists analyzed Napoleon's hair and found elevated levels of arsenic. Small, constant doses could explain every symptom he exhibited: the stomach pain, the nausea, the gradual organ failure. Was someone slowly murdering the former emperor? The evidence is chilling, but inconclusive. The arsenic could have come from the wallpaper, from its medicines, or from something much more deliberate. The truth died with those who might have known.
By 1820, Napoleon had become a shadow of himself. The man who once terrified kings and reshaped continents now spent his days dictating memoirs, trapped in memories of past glories, while his body betrayed him completely. During lucid moments, he would analyze his past mistakes with brittle honesty: the disastrous Russian campaign, the decision to return from Elba. But increasingly, reality blurred with delusion as he relived old battles, shouting orders to generals who existed only in his dying mind. The psychological torture was perhaps worse than the physical. This was a man whose thoughts once moved armies, whose decisions changed history. Now he couldn't even control his own body's rebellion against him.
March 1821 brought the beginning of the end. Napoleon began dictating his will, a document that revealed both his persistent grandiosity and heartbreaking humanity. He forgave his enemies, expressed love for his family, and in one final act of defiance, left money to the soldier who had tried to assassinate Wellington. His last weeks were a masterpiece of suffering. Severe abdominal pain left him curled in agony for days at a time, unable to eat or drink. The conqueror of Europe was reduced to dependence on his few faithful companions for the most basic needs. The morning of May 5, 1821, storm clouds gathered over St. Helena as Napoleon Bonaparte draws his final breaths in that cursed house on the plateau. Around his deathbed stand the handful of followers who chose to share his exile, witnesses to the end of an era. His last words, according to those present, came in barely audible whispers. "France, army, head of the army, Josephine." With those words, the most powerful man of his generation slipped into history, dying in exile 4,000 miles from the country he loved.
The official British autopsy concluded stomach cancer, the same disease that killed his father. Case closed. Mystery solved. Or was it? The poison theory refused to die. Too many symptoms didn't quite fit. Too many coincidences. Too much to gain from Napoleon's slow death rather than martyrdom. Modern science has provided more questions than answers, with competing theories about arsenic, sources, and alternative causes. For 19 years, Napoleon lay buried under a weeping willow in a nameless grave on St. Helena. The British feared even his corpse might inspire revolution. But in 1840, King Louis Philippe negotiated the return of Napoleon's remains to France. The return of the ashes became a national epic. Millions lined the streets of Paris to witness the funeral cortege carrying their emperor home at last. The exile was over. The legend had returned to rest among his people. More than 200 years later, the mystery endures. Modern forensic techniques have analyzed hair samples, clothing fibers, and personal effects, but definitive answers remain elusive. Was Napoleon murdered through slow poisoning, or did he die from natural causes accelerated by the hell of his exile? Perhaps the truth matters less than the story itself. The ultimate cautionary tale of how the mighty fall. The man who conquered almost all of Europe died as a prisoner on a rock in the middle of nowhere, his final years marked by humiliation, sickness, and isolation. Napoleon's terrible end at St. Helena represents one of history's cruelest ironies. The strategic genius who redrew the map of Europe couldn't strategize his way out of a 47-square-mile prison. The emperor who controlled the fate of millions couldn't control his own destiny. His death closed not just an extraordinary life, but an entire chapter of European history. It proved that even the greatest among us are mortal, that fortune's wheel can transform emperors into prisoners, conquerors into exiles. Today, visitors to Les Invalides in Paris can stand before Napoleon's magnificent tomb, ponder the questions that still haunt historians. Did he die naturally? Or was he murdered? Was his death the result of tropical disease or something far more sinister? The answers lie buried with him in that grand sarcophagus, but the mystery lives on. Perhaps that's fitting for a man whose life was larger than legend, that even his death should remain shrouded in shadow and speculation. One thing remains certain: the terrible final chapter of Napoleon Bonaparte serves as a stark reminder that no matter how high we rise, how much power we wield, or how many battles we win, all face the same ultimate defeat. The only question is whether we'll meet it with dignity or despair. The emperor is dead. Long live the mystery.